Hello, hello, hello. It is Tammy Silvers of Tamarini's, and I want to welcome you to my Facebook Live Auditioning Fabric class. So, what I'm going to be talking about tonight is some tips, some processes that I go through, some approaches for when you're selecting fabric. So one of the things that I've discovered in teaching classes is that a lot of students tell me that choosing fabrics for a project is actually one of their stressors. It's one of the difficult things. So I think that's why kits are so popular, because the fabric selection has already been made for you and you don't have to think about it. But let's say that you don't want to use a kit, or in the case of our current world, you're trying to use the fabric that you do have in your stash. And so you're trying to make those selections because, let's face it, you want the best project possible, right? So I'm going to share with you some of my tips and some of my approaches. But if you're here live, go ahead and take advantage of that and ask me some questions. Tell me what some of your dilemmas are, and I might be able to address that. Now, I'm going to be turning the camera down in just a few minutes because I have a pile of fabric here on my cutting table that we're going to be using to talk about this process. But I see that I've got a few folks with me, so pop in, say hello so that I know that you're here, and let me know if you have any particular issues or dilemmas that you feel like you face when you're selecting fabrics for a quilt project. So are there any challenges that you find that you're encountering that are not giving you the results that you're looking for? And please ignore, I know there's a mess behind me. I have like 4 projects going on right now, and the studio is in a bit of a chaotic state, which is bad because I'm supposed to be participating in Cheryl Sloboda's Clean Up Your Studio or Clean Up Your Sewing Room blog hop. But hey, I've got 2 weeks before I have to get this done, so we're good right now. So any questions, any concerns, any issues that you currently struggle with when you're selecting fabrics? Anybody? Now, there is a little bit of a delay from you typing your responses in and me seeing them, and I am looking at it on the phone, so it's going to be very, very tiny. Okay, so while I'm waiting for somebody to pop in and say, here's my struggle, a lot of different things. Now, one of the concepts that I think you should consider is when you're selecting fabrics to have a variety of scale as well as color. Okay, so I'm going to turn the camera down, and like I said, I've got several stacks here for us to look at, and I thought it would be a fun approach. So these are just some from my personal stash, and actually these are fabrics that I had pulled together, not for a particular quilt, but just because, oh, I like these, I think I want to put them in a project together. So let me share with you what some of my process, some of my thought was, and maybe this will help. So let's see, what do I have? Oh, I have this adorable Mary Englebright little panel. And while I know not everybody is a panel person, sometimes these are super for just a quick project, right? But let's look at what I pulled to go with this. Okay. So I have this panel, so whether I'm wanting to chop these up and put them into individual pillows, or maybe I was going to cut them apart and do some piecing around them, I've selected some additional fabrics. Now, some of these are coordinates that came from that same line, which makes it super easy because we know the colors are going to work, and we know that for the most part, we're going to have a variety of scale. So let's look at this. So that's actually indeed what I have. So I have this very tiny little print, and then in that coordinate, now look at that. See, that's a different scale. It's still that organic shape, the flower shapes, same flowers, but a much bigger scale. So that's providing a lot of interest right there, because not only do I have a change in color, but I have a change in scale. Okay, another great thing to do is to add a little bit of texture, a little bit of interest, but select a tone on tone. And a tone on tone, in case you're not familiar, a tone on tone is very much, I'm going to hold this up to the camera so you can see when I hold it back here, it reads, this red reads like a solid, but when I pull it up here, you can see, oh, it's actually a little plaid. So this is a great tone on tone, and it reads as a solid, and it's a nice dark, so it's giving me good contrast, but because you can see in contrast to this lovely olive green, it stands out nicely. Okay, now this next one you may think, I'm not so sure, and that's okay, because when you select fabrics, you select what's going to make you happy. I love dots. To me, dots are happy. So I've got this great dot print that's an overall. Okay, now one of the reasons I think it works is because I'm going to take this print back over here and restack it. Okay, so I've still got the organic shapes. So I've got that organic shape repeating, but see how this print right here has a little bit of that black in it. So it's not totally unrelated, but again, it's a different scale. It is between the tiny flowers and the large flowers. So I've got a good variety, okay? And then I have this print. So again, I have a completely different scale. I've got a different print, and I'm introducing a new color because this gold here is pulling from the gold that's in my large flowers, slightly smaller print, more condensed print, but look at what a nice variety that gives. Okay, now the other thing that's going on here is I don't really have a directional print. And we're going to talk about working with directional prints. Hey, Paula, how are you? Does anybody, I love directional prints, but does anybody struggle with directional prints? Sometimes they can be challenging because by their very nature, then you're going to have to fussy cut to control how your fabric is going. So with these selections, I'm actually very lucky because none of these are directional prints. So it's not going to matter how I cut them or where I place them. The fabric direction, they're scattered prints. The print is scattered. So it's non-directional. So that's something else to consider. Okay. So I do have some directional prints, and let me find some. I'm going to fold this up and put it out of the way. Let me find some directional prints, and let's look at those. Okay, directional. Oh, okay, here we go. Now this is an oldie but a goodie. I got this a long, long time ago. No idea what I'm going to use this with, but here's what I started with. I fell in love with this repeating stripe. Okay, very much a directional print, right? But I just thought it was super pretty, and again, no idea what I was going to do with it, but I'm thinking, well, I want to be able to put this into a quilt or create a project from it, so let me pull some fabrics from that are going to work with this, and that's exactly what I did. I even remember the shop I got this from. This is how crazy it is. I don't know if that happens for you, but the shop is no longer there, but it was a little shop in Dahlonega, Georgia, and I was up there one spring. It was a girls' trip. I still remember that, so I don't know. That's kind of funny. So let's look at the prints that I chose. Okay, so I chose this. Now, this is a great overall print, and if I come back a little bit, it really can act as reads as a solid. It has a little bit of texture, so it provides a little bit of movement, but for the most part, it's a non-directional print because if you look, this print kind of swirls, so I can use it anyway, all right? Then I pull this. Now, this is very much a directional print. So when I go to use this, I'm either going to have to fussy cut, meaning that I will cut some of my strips along the selvage and some across the selvage so that I can control which way my stripes go, or I can embrace it and let them go any which way. You have to decide. There's no quick, easy answer. All right, then I selected this print. Now look at this. This is nice. It's a lighter color, so it's going to give me some nice contrast, but it's also, it probably is a coordinate for this. The others are not, but hi, Sherry. Thanks for joining. But it's got a lot of the same colors that are in here, but it's much more muted. And again, non-directional. It's a nice overall. Okay, so now I selected this one, and this again is pulling that lovely pumpkin color that's in that repeating row stripe, and it's also got the purple, and you can see the purple was a heavy theme, but look at how concentrated this print is. And when I look at this, it reads more as an orange, but again, I've got a different scale. This is a large scale print. This one reads as a solid. Here's my directional, and then I have this much smaller print. And then I selected this. Now again, keep in mind, I have no idea how I'm going to use these in a project, but I'm going to show you something in just a second with this print, because this is very pretty. And if you looked at this on a bolt, you see it, and you see the large orange medallions, and you see the purple in between, and you may think, oh, that's really lovely. But I'm going to show you why it might be good for some projects and it might be bad for others. And then I selected this other print, this lovely mint green that can also work as a solid. So I have two different fabrics that can work as a solid, and those are my blue and that green. And one is much darker than the other, but everything works together. Okay, so let's talk about this. I've got this print. Once I decide what project I'm going to put this in, I have to be concerned with scale. So this does have a fairly, and scale is relative, it does have a fairly large scale medallion here. So if I am using this perhaps in the center of a block, that might be great. But what if I am going to have 3-inch finished pieces? Well, I mentioned 3-inch because I cut my little cheat sheet just for you. All right, so I created a template. So I took some cardstock and I cut a 3-inch square because I know that's going to be the size of my finished unit. All right, so if I want to audition this fabric and see, is this going to work for that project that's going to have a lot of 3-inch units? Look at what's going to happen. So if I center the medallion, if the piece happens to fall right there, that's awesome. But what if, I'm going to slide this around, it is entirely possible that I might not get much of the medallion, or I wouldn't see the medallion. Okay, so you get an idea. And this is where, if you're really concerned with what are you going to see when you're using that print, creating a little template like this can really help you audition your fabric. And you can lay it on top of your fabric and see, am I happy with that? Is that really going to work? Okay, how are we doing so far? Anything striking a nerve? Anything hitting home for you and y'all are saying, yeah, I've sometimes dealt with that myself and I've wondered about that? Okay, now did y'all come, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask, did you come into this with any questions? What were you hoping to hear from this? Because I've got lots of fabric and I can keep talking. But again, if you have any specific questions or dilemmas, hi Sin, thanks for joining. I would be more than happy to address them. Now, one thing I tell students is when you're in a quilt shop, one thing you can do is take your bolts and stack them up. Now, I don't have any bolts with me, but this is going to work the same way. I have my fabrics folded, and you see how when I fold them, now I can get, hi Kayla, thanks for dropping in. When I have them folded, I get an idea of how these fabrics work together. And this can be one way of looking at your fabrics, and it works kind of like cutting your little template, okay? It gives you an idea of what do you like and what do you not like. Now, there is a big difference here though, because when you look at your fabric on a bolt, you see it like this, right? You see a nice big piece. When you look at the edge of the fabric, you're seeing a small piece. So sometimes when you're stacking them up, I'm gonna pull some other fabrics in that are from another line, and I'm going to slide them in here in different places so that we can get an idea of, hey, if I wanted to audition these fabrics and see if they worked, I can do that. sliding some in between. Okay, so I slid some of those geometrics in, okay? And just looking at that, now I know what I put in there, but I already have one. Maybe I need to fold it fatter so y'all can see it. Don't look. All right, so I folded a little bit fatter. So I was thinking, because there are some bright colors in here, that chartreuse might work. But when I look at it, when I look at all of those fabrics together, this really stands out. It does not have the same feel as the rest of the fabric, so I can already see that. Now, this fuchsia right here, that might work. It's very geometric compared to the others, but it might work. But I'm going to pull that chartreuse out, because that definitely is not working for me. Now, this all looks pretty good. But the other thing you have to do is you do have to consider the scale of the fabric. And there is one of these, it's of course the one on the bottom. This looked good in the stack. It's like, oh yeah, that kind of blends. But when I take it out, it's a repeating row stripe. So that's one of the cases of I have to be careful about what am I actually going to see when I go to use the fabric. Now, I do think that these repeating row stripes are a ton of fun, because they give you the opportunity for, you can do some fussy cutting, you can get a wide variety of print and scale from one single fabric that make awesome borders, awesome sashings. But you do have to be careful when you choose this fabric to make sure that you've got that kind of application in mind, because just cutting strips, if you're just cutting strips and maybe doing some strip piecing, you might get this pink right here, or you might get this kind of Bargello looking print, or you could get the little paisleys. So you can see that's where you really have to pay attention to that kind of thing. Now, another suggestion that I tell people is find a fabric that you really like. Let's see. Let's find a fabric. Okay. All right. I'm going to we'll work with this group. Okay. So here is another large scale print. Really, really love that print. I also got this one in Delana, a different quilt shop. Really, really love this print. Oh my gosh, I've had it forever. I need to do something with it. Love the colors, love the motifs. All right, so I selected fabrics that went with it. So yes, I did get a coordinate. Okay, so it's that same print, just an overall print. But I pulled out some others from other lines. Okay, so I have this with the little stars on it. And then, just like I've been talking about, I pulled out one that reads as a solid. And I pulled out this fun, very strong directional. Okay. And I have this one, which is another directional, but has a very different feel from this very even stripe. And then I have another reads as a solid. And then this may feel like a strange selection, but I'm going to lay these together and show you. Okay, so let's look at all of those together. So this blue feels like it's kind of odd, but it came from this fabric. It came from my inspiration fabric, because you can see that little bit of pop of blue. Now, here's the secret. Here is what some people go, oh my gosh, I totally love that. This is my inspiration. This is where I pulled my colors. And you can see there's lots of other colors I did not pull, but you can see where I got my colors. This was my inspiration for this palette. Do I have to keep this in the mix? I don't. Look what happens. All right, when I take it out of the mix, I still have a really fun group of fabric. And in fact, I'm going to move some pieces around so you can see, so that they're not blending all together all at one time. And that's a really fun palette, right? So sometimes you may find a print, you may absolutely love it, but you're not sure how you're going to use it. Maybe it's a big scale. This is a pretty big scale print. So maybe it's the scale, maybe it's the motif, and you're like, I don't know how I would use that, but oh my gosh, I'm really drawn to it. Maybe you're drawn to it because of the colors that are in it. So use that as your inspiration to pull together a color palette, because hey, if it works in this fabric, it's going to work as a set, right? Now, you could, yes, put this back in as your border. You could use it as your back, but keep in mind, hey, you're in charge. You're the one that's putting it together. This is your creation and your expression of you and your vision. So let your large print fabrics, let your busy prints be an inspiration for you to pull together. Hey, Tony, let them be an inspiration to pull together your color palette. That takes away a lot of the stress. Somebody has already found fabrics and colors that work together, right? So now you don't have to. Boom, right? One of my favorites. I do it actually quite frequently. Use an inspiration piece to set my color palette. Yes, absolutely. A lot of fun. Okay, what else? What else can I share with you? Molly, I'm glad you think this is good information. One thing I want to encourage you, okay, you've heard me mention scale, so I do want to talk about that. I'm going to try and find, I think this one, maybe I have the same, maybe I don't. Oh, yes, I do. Okay. One of the things that I'm going to encourage you to do, and again, this is just advice, take it or leave it. Robin, I bought a batik jelly roll that's full of jewel tones, which range from navy blue to turquoise to purple to, hang on, I can't read all of it. I can't figure out how to balance it with a contrast color. Okay, so Robin is talking about, she has a jewel tone jelly roll, right? Ooh, I have a jewel tone jelly roll. Let me show you. Now it's not open, but since you brought it up, so something like this, right? Lots of brights. So your question is, what do I put it with, right? So you said you want it with a contrast color. I hear you. When you've got all of these strong colors and you want to put them against something, what's the default? Well, the default is black, right? But default is not what you have to go with. I would suggest, of course you can go with a white, you can go with a black. But you do want to find a background color that is in the same tone. In other words, with these, yes, Tony, this is Kismet. This was my fall line with Island Batik. Because these colors are very clear and very bright. Whatever I put them with, I'm going to want to also be very clear and bright. I have right here a lovely turquoise. Now, for me personally, I would not hesitate to put this set with this bright blue. Now, it's going to be pretty eye-popping. No lie. Very bright. Yes, very happy, right? That is what I love about bright colors. So I wouldn't hesitate. But if you want these to stand out, then maybe you do go with a black. Maybe you go with a charcoal or a navy blue, a hunter green. But really, the best thing I would tell you, Robin, is to audition. So this is part of auditioning, and I do this all the time. I lay fabrics on top of each other and see what is the relationship. And this is really great with this strip set because, see, now I can see this kind of turquoise with all of the fabrics. And I can tell that these right here are going to be a lower contrast, a silver or a gold. So are you talking metallic or like gold, like a mustard? Really depends. And again, auditioning fabrics is one of those things that you really have to play around with it. So for me personally, I wouldn't hesitate to put, like I said, this bright blue with this set. I would know that these few fabrics right here are going to be my lower contrast fabrics, but I know that the bulk of the set is really going to pop, and the whole thing is going to feel like a hot tropical vacation, right? Yes. Okay, so scale. Here's one thing I would encourage you. Sometimes you will be working with fabrics and you'll find fabrics from a fabric line. This is a great example too. And they have multiple colors in the same print. Okay, so this was a line that was designed by my friend Susan Emery. She designed this for Michael Miller. I don't remember what the name of the line was, but it was really cute. But these were all of the blenders from that line. There were other prints in that line, but this is just what I happen to have. All right, so when I hold these up, do you see how, I mean, these are great colors, and they're all, but they're all the same print, just in different colors. So Robin, leave out the lower or just, okay, that's a personal choice. So Robin's question, would you just leave out when sorry, I'm going back and forth, but I'm trying to answer questions. With this, her question was, would I leave out these lower contrast or just go with it? Personal choice, and it's really going to depend upon your project. Let's say that you have a jelly roll project and you need all 40 strips. Well, then your challenge is to find something that is going to play nice with all 40 colors. For me, depending upon the project, I might make a judicious choice of where do I put these lower contrast strips, because it might be kind of fun if they almost disappeared, because it's going to give some movement to the project. So personal choice. There's not a hard and fast answer on that. But that's one of the pre-cuts are great because you don't have to cut them. But then you have that challenge of, I have a ton of fabrics and often a lot of different colors. In the Kismet set, there's 20 different fabrics, 20 different colors. You've got to find something that works with all of them. So one of the things I recommend whenever possible is to not do all of your project in the same print, in the same scale. So again, this is not, Susan's line had other prints and other scales. She had this really cute telephone, and she had dots, and she had letters. But if I were choosing fabrics, I would hesitate to select all that had the same scale, because they start to blend. Okay, now not that these colors blend. So here's another example. This is, who is this? All of these are old fabrics because these are all from my personal stash. I don't remember, I can't see on the selvage who the fabric line is from. Okay, these are the same prints, different colorways. Do you see that? But it's the same scale, the same size. I would hesitate to do that because these start to blend a little bit. Whereas, all right, here's one that has a gray background. But see now, because it's a different scale, similar colors, different scale, you have that stronger contrast. Okay, so again, these two, nope, is it these two? Oh, no, I'm grabbing the wrong one. Oh, these two, here we go. See, same print, same scale. I want to vary things. Here is this, I found it. Here is this one. So you can see it's the same. So if I want to keep things different, when I start mixing my scale of my print, I've got a lot more interest. The other thing that, and it's a personal choice, but the other thing I like to do is I like to have a geometric, whether it be a stripe or a hardcore geometric print. I like to have a geometric in with my organic. And organic are going to be those flowing lines like we see in nature. So it could be circles, it could be vines, it could be flowers. But I like to have some type of geometric, some type of stripe, or again, squares, to go in, triangles, to kind of break that up. And it provides some tension and it provides some interest. So with this particular fabric, they actually had a fun tile print, which was a great mix. So it gave me that linear, right? But it still had some of the same colors and some of that organic. Now, some people don't like that. And that, again, personal choice. But I can tell you it's going to have interest if you have a little bit of tension. And you don't have to have everything match perfectly. So you'll notice I'm going to come back to this group that I have pulled out. Okay. All of these colors were not exactly the same, and they didn't matchy match, but they worked together really nice. And then there's that little pop of blue. Okay, so it's not like when you select clothes, you know, and you want your shirt to match the print in your skirt or whatever. The colors don't have to be exactly the same. You want to have a variety. You want to have a light. You want to have a dark. You want to have a variety of scale and a variety in the type of your print. And all of that is going to lead to a much more interesting project. So, yes, Robin, it is fun to play around with low contrast areas. And that's one of the things. I don't know if y'all been following the blog hop that Kate Colleran and I are doing. Kate Colleran of Seems Like a Dream. We're doing the Luminous Adventure in Color. And one of the things we've been doing with some of the blocks is we have been giving y'all different color options, showing you how the change in color really changes how the block looks. And one of the fun things I think about it is my quilt is done in a very dark, very saturated colorway, and hers is done with a light background. Because mine is so dark, there are places where there's extremely low contrast, and it changes the look of the block overall. So if you haven't seen it, check out my blog and scroll through some of the posts, and you can see some of that. And I think it helps to get that visual of here's what it can look like, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So it really can be a fun thing to play around with. Oh my gosh, I have so much. Okay. So I have these. Now these, I pulled these fabrics out because, again, wanted to talk about scale of print and also type of print. Sometimes you're not sure. Oh, nice to see you, Cherry. Thanks. Sometimes you may feel like something is a directional print, but you're not really sure. Okay. So Krista Watson designed this line. And she does wonderful fabric lines, and she always has such fabulous colors. This was her Geopop line, and as you can see, well, by the very name of it, it is very geometric. Is it directional? Well, some of these yes, and some of these no. So let's look at this particular print right here. All right, so when we look at it this way, all right, and then we're going to turn it this way, and I'm going to hold up the same print in another colorway. So is it directional? Well, yes, it is. But it's subtle. It is subtle. And I think most people wouldn't notice that. But the answer is yes, this is a directional print. Very small scale, and the smaller the scale of the directional print, the more you may be able to get by with not doing any fussy cutting. But yes, this is a directional print, so that can help. You know, turn it one way, turn it the other way, and see when you look at that, you can see when you compare the two. Yes, that is a directional print. Now this one's easy. Is this a directional print? Is it? What do you think? Does it look the same this way as it does this way? No, it is a directional print. And then she had these great, let me find a big piece. Okay, this is almost, see, it's kind of like an optical illusion. Fun, right? okay? Still directional. But because of that optical illusion, I think it's a lot easier to work with. This one, this was a pleasant, pleasant surprise. Look at this. Okay, so this feels like it's directional because I can see the rows, excuse me, I can see the rows of circles. But this is a symmetrical print. So they are circles. So they're as tall as they are wide. So this actually works as a non-directional print. How fun is that? Yes. So I actually used this as the background for one of my quilts because it's a non-directional print. How fun is that? Yeah. So that's one of the things too, is that you want to look at your print and you want to think, where am I using it and how am I cutting? Now, I'm going to go on my little soapbox for just a second. I mentioned, how am I going to cut it? Best practice. When you get a pattern, what is the first thing you should do? You should read through that entire pattern. Step one, read through the entire pattern. Why? Because now you understand how you're going to be cutting. Yes, they're giving you the cutting instructions, but you need to know where and how are you going to be using that. For example, are you going to be strip piecing? Which means if you're strip piecing, you're giving up control of the direction of that fabric. Are all of the blocks oriented the same way? Or do some of them get rotated? So that's important because if you read through the pattern first, you look at your cutting, you look at your piecing instructions, then you can make those choices. Yes, Paula said she loves using prints that look directional but have no heads or butts. Yes. Yes, because if they're non-directional, like those circles that I showed you, it gives a little bit of a geometric effect, but it is more organic. But it's also that symmetry can have that geometric aspect to it. So read through your pattern first. Look at the piecing and look at the cutting instructions. Look at the piecing instructions and make sure you understand how that fabric is going to be cut and how it's going to be used in the block so you can make that choice and not get that nasty surprise, because I think that's the struggle for many of us. We find a fabric, we think, oh, that fabric would look great right there in that quilt. But then we find out that the designer is piecing it a different way, and our fabrics are going to be going the opposite of what we wanted. So reading through the pattern first is going to be your biggest friend. And then step two, which really doesn't have anything to do with auditioning fabrics, but it might, is make a sample block. Because again, that's going to help reinforce, how did the designer have that block going together? And if you understand that, then you can make better choices with your fabrics so that you can take advantage of. I'm still in class. You can make a better decision on which fabrics you're going to use in certain places. All right. Any other questions or struggles that I can answer for y'all? Okay. Well, if you think of anything later on, I will be checking the comments in the feed, and I will come back and answer any of your questions or comments. But I just wanted to give y'all some tips and and give you some things to think about for when you are auditioning fabrics. Now, if you're not busy, Saturday, I am teaching Peaks and Valleys. Peaks and Valleys is my small little crib quilt. One of the things we're going to be talking about in that class, we're going to be talking about directional fabrics, because if you're using directional fabrics for that little, it's a little crib quilt, little wall hanging, I'm going to be talking about, some ways to work with directional fabrics in that project, and you're going to have some waist blocks, and I have 3 bonus projects. Now, they're not patterns, they're just suggestions because that it's what I've done with the bonus blocks, okay? And then next Tuesday night, I am teaching Catch a Falling Star, which is all half square triangles. It is taking the broken dishes block and giving it a modern twist. It's going to be a lot of fun. So both of those classes are going to be Facebook Live classes in private groups. If you want to take them, you can sign up for them on my website. If you have questions about them, shoot me a message. I'm happy to answer. Somebody said, oh, Paula, Kismet. Kismet is available, yes. It shipped in, I'm thinking, it was my fall line, so I think it shipped in January. So, yes, Kismet is still available. All right, so guys, that's what I had for y'all. I am so thrilled that you stopped, and I know you've been seeing just the bottom half of me, so I'm going to scoot down. I am so happy that you spent your Thursday evening with me. I hope you got some benefit from this, and please, 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 like me on Facebook, like me on Instagram, sign up for my newsletter, share this video. Please, please, please share, and come back again because I'm going to have more classes in the future. All right, until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, happy stitching.